and welcome to this special edition of San Diego People. I'm Lauren Finney, and as you may have guessed, we are talking about the San Diego Zoo. It just celebrated its 100 years. It has a very unique story, but it's not just an attraction for visitors worldwide. It actually plays a critical role in conservation and research, and we're going to be talking more about that today throughout the episode. But first, I want to introduce you to Rick Schwartz, the San Diego Zoo Global Ambassador.
Thank you.
A big title, but a very important one, Rick, so we thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you guys for being here, yes.
The San Diego Zoo in the middle of Balboa Park has such a unique history as to how it started. Tell us, for those at home who don't know the story.
Well, you go back 101 years ago, Balboa Park was outside of San Diego proper. What used to be San Diego proper is what we know as downtown today. Now, of course, Balboa Park is surrounded by the city, but we had that big Panama, California Expo here, and part of that was a lot of animals from around the world, and when that expo shut down, some of the animals were left behind. In fact, one of my fun facts, Balboa Park had its own elk herd wandering around Balboa Park freely for the longest time because it was kind of a wooded area. They could do that. Sort of fast forward, Dr. Harry Wegeforth, a surgeon in San Diego, had heard some lions roaring that were left behind, and that sparked his idea to start a zoo. City didn't want to get involved. There's too much stuff going on, so he founded the nonprofit Zoological Society of San Diego back in October of 1916. And that is our official sort of birthday, if you will. So we hit 100 years last year. As you look at everything he did and how he kind of secured animals and his sort of forward thinking on how to present animals to our guests, that is really the original spot where the world famous San Diego Zoo sort of became a leader in how people experience seeing animals. Even today, we still feel his influence.
So we've really seen this evolution of what zoos are to the great job that San Diego does now as far as being a leader in conservation and research. Can you give us an overview? I know we're going to be talking more about it later, but what sort of effort is it and the process, and how did it all start as far as being a leader in conservation and research for animals?
Right. Well, you know, again, Dr. Harry really kind of set the foundation for us to be this sort of forward-thinking organization when it came to animal care. He had a veterinarian on staff, Dr. Schroeder, who eventually went to, I believe, New York for a while and then came back to head up being the director for the San Diego Zoo back in the 1950s and 60s. And he really had this concept back then that you can't just keep taking animals from the wild, which is honestly what zoos used to do. No other zoo anywhere was thinking, we can't keep doing this. That was in the 1960s. So he had this idea for this big giant breeding park. We now know it as a safari park near Escondido. That was his idea, to have this breeding facility. Now it's this beautiful park people can enjoy, but also really contributes quite a bit to conservation. Moving forward too, then we started to realize that our staff around the zoo are experts in the animal care that they have under their care, that they take care of. So we can actually take that knowledge now and apply it to these animals that are having stresses in the wild. A lot of species are coming under sort of becoming endangered species and really looking at extinction not too far off on the horizon. Our staff here, with their knowledge of animal care and animal expertise, we can make that difference bringing that knowledge out to the wild, or if we need to bring those animals in from the wild, they can have a safe haven here till they get back on their feet and go back out.
So, Rick, an important part of getting people to fall in love with the animals, as if that's a hard thing to do, is some of the feeding programs that you allow visitors to do.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we have ambassador animals that do come out of their enclosures with their keepers, or opportunities to feed some of our very, very beautiful animals, like Nikki here, our giraffe. And you know, it is a lot of fun. It's heartwarming, it's adorable, but it also does play an important role for our conservation efforts. We have seen time and time again that we can talk about conservation all we want, but until someone gets to meet these beautiful animals up close and personal and really fall in love with them, they don't really take sort of the opportunity to get involved with conservation. But you get them here in front of these animals, talk about the individuals and the species and what's going on. People are more apt to also join us in our efforts to fundraise for conservation or even be part of our citizen science program.
And I know there are some conservation efforts that San Diego Zoo is part of that are happening in Africa.
Yes, well, all over the world. Quick snapshot, we have about 140 programs going on in 80 different countries around the world. And recently we have started some new programs in Africa that do involve our giraffe friends. We have a couple of programs, one including there are camera traps set up throughout the area to try and identify them. A lot of people don't know we've lost 40% of the population of giraffe in just the last 3 decades. And we really aren't 100% sure why that is. We know some of the reasons, but not all of them. So we're starting a lot of research, trying to figure out what's going on with them, but also then to our orphanage program too, and a lot of other great programs that are very important for our African species.
Okay, so this guy right here is obviously the hungry one, but tell us a little bit about, is it Nikki?
This is Nikki, yeah, both are female. This is Nikki, she's 20 years old. One of the things you notice right away is a very long, dark tongue. It is a prehensile or grasping tongue. You see they grab that biscuit. In the wild, they're going to be reaching up into trees, pulling leaves off, and they've got to work up with that face up in the sun all the time so the dark tongue doesn't get sunburned. If it was pink like ours, you'd probably get some sun damage, so it works pretty well. You might notice too here, the nostrils can close, and they have beautiful long eyelashes. Yes. That's all for life in the Sahara and the desert regions. When you get a sandstorm going, something like that, you need to be able to close off those nostrils and blink the sand out of your eyes. And then my favorite thing to talk about too, the ossicones, or what looks like furry horns on their head. They're cartilage, and they're folded over, and as they get older they harden, and actually calcium goes in there and they become hard ossicones. Not true horns and not true antlers, but ossicones.
Interesting. Well, Nikki and Harriet, thank you for cooperating.
Yes,
and
thank you guys.
Enjoy.
Still ahead, the adventure continues.
It is a lot of fun to look down inside the exhibits or get a big overview of Africa Rocks.
We're taking you to the San Diego Zoo's newest exhibit, Africa Rocks. And later, we go to the Zoo Safari Park with more animals and another zoo completely frozen in time.
One of our researchers is going to give us a little peek into one of the tanks so you can see what some of the samples look like.
It's all coming up ahead on San Diego People.
Welcome back to this morning's special edition of San Diego People. I'm Lauren Finney, and as you can see, we are talking about the San Diego Zoo. Right now, we are inside their new exhibit, Africa Rocks, and joining us again to talk a little bit more about the conservation and research efforts that are happening at the zoo here that we see in behind the scenes, Rick Schwartz, San Diego Zoo Global's ambassador. We're inside Africa Rocks. It opened up July 1st. Of course, it's opening in stages. Talk a little bit about the first exhibit that opened and what we can anticipate as the weeks go on.
Well, right now, as you can tell, we're standing right in the middle of what we call Cape Fynbos, which is our South African tribute to the African penguin. And right now, like you mentioned, opened July 1st. Several different viewing points. We're kind of at the higher point to look across the beach and into the water, which is really nice. And then as we continue further up, we have one of the largest man-made waterfalls in San Diego County, about 65 feet high. And then as it opens up in phases across the summer, next will be West African forest. We have Madagascar coming online, the acacia woodland, and even, of course, the rock copy, which is just going to be so much fun.
It's 8 acres, but when you first walk in, you may be surprised. You're actually seeing a large aquarium. Tell us what that has in it.
Well, it's pretty awesome. I mean, really, for the history of our organization, this is the first massive undertaking for an aquarium we've ever done. In fact, we've never had sharks here before, and now we have about 12 leopard shark in with our 20 penguin. When you first walk into that area, it is sort of this beautiful giant glass wall, 13 feet high, about 170 feet in length, and that's sort of the underwater view area of our penguins and sharks. And then as you come up, there's a split level right over there, and then this beautiful beach area right here we can enjoy seeing them on their natural pebble beach.
And of course, most people hear penguins, they think snow, cold weather, but that's not the case in Africa. And the species of penguin that's here is critically endangered, and the penguins here will take part in a breeding program, right?
Yes, eventually. Right now, our 20 penguins, it's not breeding season, so we don't expect to see any breeding happening, but this facility is built for 22 breeding pairs, so about 40 penguins could actually be in here. We currently have 20, and all the breeding facilities are ready for them once they're ready. And that's so important because the species numbers have dropped dramatically in the wild, and like you'd mentioned, this is a warm weather penguin. South African penguins like to nest up on the beach. They use guano, which is poop basically, but over the years that guano becomes very thick like adobe, and they burrow out an area for their nest. Well, unfortunately, man and humans in general like to get that guano because it's rich in nitrogen, which is great for fertilizer for agriculture. Unfortunately, all that harvesting of that guano has made it so they don't have proper nesting sites. So some of the studies we do in zoos right now on what's the best nesting site in the zoo will eventually transfer that information to nest sites out in man-made nest sites out into the beaches of South Africa.
And when people are here and they're looking at the penguin beach, they see holes in the rocks behind them, and that's really kind of the nesting area.
Right, that's the beginning of the nesting area. So there will be a point in time in our Africa Rocks experience where you'll get to come out here and probably see a little baby penguin come waddling out of there. But yes, those will be the nesting sites for our penguins in the future.
So you talked a little bit about the leopard sharks, and this being the first time that the zoo has had sharks on its property. And there was a special training that a lot of the zookeepers had to go through to learn how to care for them and to get in the water with them.
Right, exactly. Like I mentioned, we had never had sharks here at the San Diego Zoo before, and especially an aquarium this large that takes you, actually, you have to go into it completely to take care of the animals. So our reptile team has really stepped up, and they've really undergone sort of a whole new fresh education for them on proper care for these fish species and everything else, including getting scuba certified, along with all the safety that goes with that, because they do need to go in the water using the buddy system to go ahead and take care of all these animals.
And despite what many people think, these sharks and penguins do get along.
Yeah, that's one thing I think is really cool about this sort of experience. As you walk through, you get to learn that there's so much diversity in the ocean, and I think sometimes that's lost on many people because we don't usually go underwater very often. So the opportunity to see that, yes, shark and penguin can live together just fine. This species of shark is a native Californian species. They're a bottom-feeding shark. Everything about their structure, the way they work, is to feed off of things on the bottom of the ocean, and nothing as big as a penguin, that's for sure. And although penguins do eat fish and sharks are fish, these sharks are way too big for the penguins, so they leave them alone.
And what can we expect opening up in the next few weeks?
As things move forward and we start moving up this big, beautiful hill here, we're going to see a West African sort of region, and that's going to include plant life as well. The one thing I pointed out before, we do a lot of work with this bioclimatic feel, so you kind of experience the plants and other animals in the region. We have plant life specifically for each region as we open up these phases. So West African forest, we're going to have the acacia woodland, we'll have the kopi, the Ethiopian highlands, which is, I think, really going to be something special for our guests. Because of the fact you think Ethiopia, you think desert. But there's actually mountainous regions 14,000 feet high and species of primates that live up there at that altitude, and they'll be right here at the San Diego Zoo.
So awesome. And make sure that everybody takes a look at the plants as well, right?
Exactly, yes.
All native?
Yeah, they're all native. Our horticulture team has done an amazing job. And I have to say, everything you experience at San Diego Zoo could not have been done without the donations we get. This is a $68 million project paid for by donations.
Amazing.
Coming up, we're traveling to the San Diego Zoo Safari Park.
You look around and you see a wide variety. You have some waterbuck over there, we have some oryx over there, gazelles further on, giraffe down that way, and this is all one exhibit space. Really transforms you into sort of a safari experience.
We'll show you what makes this park different, plus take you inside the zoo's lab with a top researcher in the frozen zoo.
Our goal here at San Diego Zoo Global is to end extinction, and we're talking about the species that are right on the edge right now.
It's all right ahead on San Diego People.
Welcome back to this special edition of San Diego People. We have made the 45-minute journey north to the San Diego Zoo Safari Park. And what you may not know about this vast safari land is that it houses a hidden gem, what's called the Frozen Zoo. Dr. Alberts, we are inside the Frozen Zoo, and this is what a lot of people may not know about, but is so important to the conservation research being done with San Diego Zoo Global. Tell us what we're seeing.
Yes, the Frozen Zoo is an amazing resource. It's got about 10,000 individuals represented here from about 1,000 species and subspecies. We have living cell lines, actual DNA stored here. And Marlis, one of our researchers, is going to give us a little peek into one of the tanks so you can see what some of the samples look like.
Wow, so this is liquid nitrogen, right? How long can these samples be stored here?
So these samples can basically be stored here in perpetuity. They can be stored here forever. That is one of the most amazing things about the Frozen Zoo.
And so some of these samples, really the Frozen Zoo was started back in 1975?
It was. And at the time that these samples were stored here, we really didn't know all the different things that could be done with them. That's one of the amazing things about the frozen zoo, is that we're constantly finding out as technologies change and evolve some of the things that can be done with these samples, and really how incredibly valuable they are.
And so over here we're looking at more of different skin samples, things like that, as opposed to the other side of the room, which is more sperm and egg samples.
So on this side of the room we have our living cell lines. So some of these that are collected from living animals often come from a skin biopsy. They start out as a skin sample, and they are living what we call fibroblast cell lines. They're actually alive. You can think of them in suspended animation in the frozen zoo. On the other side of the room we have more of our gamete collection, sperm and eggs.
Samples that will hopefully save critically endangered species from extinction. San Diego Zoo Global Ambassador Rick Schwartz talks about the foresight scientists had when creating the frozen zoo.
What's truly fascinating, though, is the frozen zoo was started before that science to do that even existed. Today we're seeing science starting to allow us, with stem cell research and everything else, to do a lot more with what's been preserved for the last several decades.
Amazing. So really it's helping with a lot of the research and hopefully extending some of those species, because a lot of the species that are here are endangered or critically endangered.
Yes, absolutely. You know, we do tell the story of the white rhino here. We have southern white rhino here, but the northern white rhino, there's only 3 left. We had NOLA not too long ago. There was a resident northern white rhino here.
3 left in the world.
3 left in the world, yes.
Yeah.
They're under lock and key and armed guard, quite literally, in Kenya. And we have, though, about 12 different individuals represented in the frozen zoo. And so now we're turning to science. Is there something we can do with those genetics to sort of give that population a boost and give some hope to the northern white rhino? And of course, we are learning as we go, which is very important as well, because we see other rhino species heading that way as well, towards critical extinction, or critical endangerment towards extinction. So we're hoping what we learn can be applied to the northern white rhino, and if not them, the next species that needs that help.
And people might remember that the safari park had a northern white rhino for quite some time.
Yes, that was NOLA. In fact, we had 2 for quite a long time. NOLA and Angelifu were both older northern white rhinos, way past breeding age. They lived out their senior years here quite well, were great ambassadors to educate the public about the plight of their species and species like them. And when she passed away, we were very sad here. It was a very hard day for all of us, from administration to keepers. We were a bit taken aback, though, how much the local public shared the condolences. I mean, it was an outpouring of condolences from the public, and it meant so much to us and our staff. I still get a little choked up about it. I mean, she was such an icon, and then the emotional hug the community gave us back when she passed away was truly inspiring for us to keep doing what we're doing.
Yeah, they're your babies,
They
but
are.
they're all of our babies
Yes,
too, because we
yes.
come to visit. And really getting up close with the animals is such a treat, and that's really what the Ambassador program is all about. We met the giraffes,
Yeah.
very friendly,
Yep.
and slobbery a little bit, but there's also a lot of other animals that actually go out into the public.
Absolutely. You know, as astonishing as this view is, and as beautiful as it helps transform you to Africa in a certain way, nothing beats having the opportunity to get up close and personal with an individual animal and have it look you in the eye, or have the opportunity to ask the keeper who takes care of it specific questions. And that's where our Animal Ambassador program really makes a difference in getting people emotionally attached to the animals, so hopefully they'll help us in conservation.
So we should go meet a few?
You want to?
Let's do it.
I think we should.
Okay. So Rick, we are now at the Animal Ambassador area with our cute friend Fernando. Tell us about Fernando.
Fernando is known as a lesser anteater, but we don't think lesser of him. Lesser in the animal kingdom just means a smaller version of what's usually referred to as giant or greater. A lot of species have that, giant and less than, or lesser. We also call them, though, a tamandua, which is more of an appropriate name for the species. And a tamandua, or the lesser anteater, is found in South America. They're a tree-dwelling anteater. Fernando here is 1 year old, so he might have a little more growing to do to fill out a little bit, but for the most part, this is an average size for a tamandua. And the opportunity here, as you can notice, in fact, we want to get down close and look how cute he is. The opportunity here for animal ambassadors and the importance of animal ambassadors really give our guests and other folks an opportunity, he's going to fall asleep on us, to meet these animals up close and personal. And it is one thing to be out on one of our many different safaris here at the safari park or at the zoo, going around seeing the different animals in their bioclimatic zones, but it really is another thing to have the opportunity to get this close, to look them in the eye or have them look you in the eye, and really then have one of the trainers, keepers, or educators right next to you that you can ask questions and learn more about this individual animal and then the species as well.
good friend of Fernando's is Pokey, very appropriately named.
Yes, she is a crested porcupine, a little bit different than what we have here in North America. Excuse me, this species though is directly related to the North American porcupines. In fact, all porcupines are rodents. There's, I think, right around 30 different species of porcupine, and we don't really realize that very often, but they fill a lot of different niches throughout the world. This one here is a ground-dwelling porcupine. They will utilize old aardvark burrows or old hyena dens, or even dig out some of their own. And as you can see right here, she's doing the classic rodent behavior, which is holding the food at the front, the front feet and bringing it to the mouth and chewing like you'd see a squirrel do that or a mouse do that. Those are all rodents. They're just varying sizes, and of course the quills offer up a little bit different sort of adaptation than other rodents.
That's probably the fastest I've ever seen corn on the cob go down. So I'm sure a lot of the people that you bring to meet Pokey or take out to meet Pokey are inquiring about the quills and whether or not it's dangerous. But
it's dangerous if you were trying to eat her. She would defend herself. Believe it or not, these quills are just a modified hair, so they can't shoot them, which is one of the myths about porcupines we always hear. They cannot shoot them out. It's meta-keratin, grows out of a follicle just like your hair does. And when we get goosebumps, we get these little weird bumps. It's actually a small muscle attached to the root of your hair that makes it stand up. They have those same muscles, but they have conscious control of them. So if she felt she was under attack, she could flare up all these quills and even kind of shift them or point them to the direction she feels the threat coming from. And of course, she would move around as well. And with this, what we kind of refer to as a skirt, all the way up like this, she can actually even protect the front of her face, and she can bow down if need be and make those quills go forward. I've actually seen footage of 3 female lions trying to eat one of these very unsuccessfully. Their attack was unsuccessful. The defense from the porcupine was very successful. So they can not move necessarily as fast enough to get away from a predator in Africa, but they can definitely defend themselves if needed.
Make themselves look not appetizing.
Right, and it's just hard. I mean, with your nose and your paws, if you're trying to get in there to attack something, it just doesn't work when it's all these sharp things coming out at you. And the quills are all varying sizes and shapes, so no matter what angle you're trying to go at, they can usually defend themselves. And as she's turned towards you, you can see the tail right here, the tip of the tail. Those quills have grown differently. Almost looks like someone has cut them with scissors. Right. That's a natural growth pattern for those quills. They are hollow. All quills are hollow inside, but because they're open and short and on her tail, if she feels threatened, let's say you're in Africa, you've got big animals to contend with, and an elephant might be walking by or a hippo walk by, they're not going to try to hurt you, but they could if they stepped on you. She would shake that tail, a very staccato rattle type sound, not unlike what we have with our rattlesnakes here in Southern California, to warn those animals, hey, I'm right here, you better back off. And usually that's enough to scare an animal away, and if not, then they have the quills to defend themselves.
And how old is Pokey?
Pokey is 20 years old, which is quite old for a porcupine. She's been an ambassador here for a very long time. A lot of people here in the San Diego area know her because she's been here as an ambassador so long. We've taken her on the road with us as well, one of the great little travelers. And again, this is an opportunity for us to share with you up close. I mean, honestly, in the real world, you would never want to be this close to a porcupine. This is not something you would normally get to see up close and personal. And here you have the opportunity to see and really appreciate the wonder of the natural world.
Thanks for coming along on our adventure and for joining this special edition of San Diego People. We hope you learned a little more about the important work San Diego Zoo Global is doing in wildlife conservation to protect the animals we love and their habitats. Until next time on San Diego People, I'm Lauren Finney, KUSI. This week on San Diego People, we're taking you on an adventure, an up-close look at the San Diego Zoo and the San Diego Zoo Safari Park. But what you may not know is that both zoos are leading the way in conservation research. The details this Sunday at 11 a.m. on San Diego People. This week on San Diego People, we're taking you on an adventure, an up-close look at the San Diego Zoo and the San Diego Zoo Safari Park. But what you may not know is that both zoos are leading the way in conservation research. The details this Sunday at 11 a.m. on San Diego People.